you're in charge of starting and everything now. So you just, oh my goodness, it's like the old days. Because you're the proper journalist, I'm not. So you on you go. On you. Oh my goodness.
All right. Okay, so I'll leave it up to you to edit this because you're familiar with the software and everything, and I'm hopeless at that. So
you just start and we'll finish. We'll run it raw. Let's do it like we always do. Come on.
okay. Hello, I'm not Professor Tara Brabazon, but this vlog is about Professor Tara Brabazon.
Oh my goodness.
I'm Professor Jacquie Ewart, and
Woo!
I've been friends with this wonderful human, Tara, for more than 25 years. And I've followed her career and adventure over the years. Tara, I thought it was time that there was a vlog devoted to you. And how fitting is number 299? Not 300.
Not 300.
No, but 299, because there's something magical about 299.
Do tell us, Jackie.
299 can be divided by 1, 13, 23, and itself. Look at those numbers.
Yeah.
1, 13,
Jane.
23, and 299.
That's amazing.
But there's more.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
299 is also a number that is considered to represent adaptability and cooperation.
Oh, that's amazing.
In Greek, it means, hold on to your chair.
I'm there. I'm with you, Jack. I'm with you.
It means without blemish, free from faultiness. So without blemish and free from faultiness.
I didn't even know faultiness was a word, but I'm carrying it forward in my life, Jack. That's amazing.
So Tara, 299 is your number and your blog.
Well, look, I love you for this, Jack. And can I say this had a recent manifestation, this vlog, and it's because you're so damn popular. I mean, we recorded a vlog a couple of vlogs ago because I wanted to share you with the world. And needless to say, of course, the world loves you. And yeah, things went a bit bonkers going, how great is Jackie? We need to see Jackie again. And then, of course, you had a cunning suggestion as this series is reaching its denouement that we would finish here. And I thought that was a brilliant idea with just one final vlog to go. So this is the second last vlog, and we're going to create a bit of havoc from what I've heard, Jack.
Totally. Tara, it's been wonderful to watch your vlogs every Thursday. You've helped so many people and touched so many lives. For me and others, they've provided a kind of touchstone in times of turmoil and sheer madness. Your vlogs have ranged across many, many topics under the higher education umbrella. Your viewers have met some stellar scholars through your weekly vlogs.
Like you. Sorry, like you.
And Tara, we've come to know some things about you through your vlogs, but there's still so much more to tell.
I think I'm really boring, Jack. You know that. I think I'm really dull, but anyway, let's crack on.
Tara, what we've really come to learn through your vlogs is that you're a magnificent human. Totally magnificent, and a wonderful, caring scholar. Tara, your story is one of kindness, compassion, mentoring, and leadership. And I don't use the word leadership in the context of higher education very often or very lightly, because your story is about real, in capital letters, leadership, in an environment where leadership is often sadly lacking. So now it's your turn, Tara. I want to focus today on some of the questions your regular followers might have, and I want to explore your story, Tara.
Oh, well, help me, Jack, because as I said, I'm very dull, so together we might make it a little bit more enlivening.
So welcome, Tara.
So excited, Jack. This is just a delightful moment for us to share. We've shared so many of the wow, tough times of our lives, you and I, moments of pivot, moments of change, moments of horror, and it's just sort of lovely that we share this time. It's just we've in many ways grown up together and grown up as academics together. So this is just lovely.
Let's begin with your career. What drew you to an academic life? And I say life, Tara, because you embody what I think, and I'm sure many others think, are the best qualities in an academic. It's your calling. It's not just a job. I mean, the job you have today or tomorrow may just be a job, but you're at heart an academic. Always was, always will be.
Yeah, and look, Jack, we may be reaching a time in our career, and you and I have talked about this, you know, outside of these vlogs, that there's perhaps a tragedy coming to the next generation. We might just have enough university life left to complete our careers, or maybe not. We don't know. But there is no doubt that academic life is more difficult to sustain in universities. And there may reach a point where academics are actually outside of universities and more, let's say, bespoke functionalities of academic life are cleaved away. So a teaching specialist is a language we've had recently, or research only. So being an academic, having teaching, research, community engagement, university service, that was the academic life that was mine at the start, and you know, till the end of my career, that is what I will do. But I suppose, Jack, I always came to academic life knowing the privilege of having a chance to go to a university. You know, my father was a carpenter, but as he says, Jesus was a carpenter. And my mum left school at 12 and worked in a shop. And, you know, they had powerful lives, but wow, they were tough lives. And as Doris always said to me, you know, it's bloody hard to earn a living. And so the opportunity they gave me was to go to university, and that's astonishing. And it's something I have never taken for granted and will never take for granted. My father was much older, my mother was much older when they had me. And so the education of women was not a taken for granted variable at that particular time. So I was very grateful that they made that commitment. So I love what a university education has given me, and I loved it so much that I stayed. And the ability to care for the next generation of scholars. There's a stewardship element to academic life, which I adore. And of course, high degree students particularly so. So the teaching elements I always loved and respected. The research is just a joy, but the service, and of course I worked in North America where the word service is used much more benevolently. Here it's a bit, you know, like you're here to serve, you know, you're doing retail, whereas actually service is a powerful word for me. And of course, Jack, and this may be where our careers are a bit different, I read Antonio Gramsci really early. And so the organic intellectual probably was the trope of my life, someone that has to read and interpret and understand politics and life in really tough times, the Benito Mussolini regime, understand how to be a scholar and a thinker in a tough time, and then how to take what we know, that expertise, and disseminate it widely to try and improve the planet. So for me, that has always been the project. And I hope, Jack, that project can always be housed in a university. And increasingly in the last couple of years, I'm not sure that's the case. I believe in it. I hope it can. I'll hold on to that. But I'm frightened that our universities as an institution, we're losing the tether to the organic intellectual.
Wow. Yes. Dire times ahead, and some dire times have happened in the last couple of years as well, Tara. But I'm really fascinated by that, how that really formed and informed you from the beginning of your career, because as you say, you know, I came into academia after 10 years, a little bit over 10 years in industry.
That's right.
And so didn't really have the benefit of that kind of, I guess, the anchoring that happened for you. So you're probably quite lucky in having been exposed to those works at such an early age and such a formative age for an academic as well.
Look, I think so, Jack, but I think also you gained other abilities that I don't have. You are much more agile. You've always been much more real. I've always, when I've needed good counsel, how often have I said to you through our lives, what's happening, right? I can't diagnose what's happening here. So I think your secondary socialization through that 10 years as a journalist means that you were much savvier. You had a much greater diagnostic expertise, and you still do, than I had. Whereas I sort of have this perhaps naive belief, that the world is going to get better if everyone can just get the right information and get the right knowledge configuration, then citizenship will improve. Now, I mean, what Donald Trump and Boris Johnson and indeed ScoMo has shown is that I'm wrong. But I still hope and believe that if information literacy is in place, citizenship will improve.
So I want to go back to something that you just mentioned. You mentioned your mother and father, Big Kev and Doris. Obviously really important, influential figures in your life. Often in your vlogs, Tara, you've mentioned your father, and sometimes these references have made me laugh because particularly the comments that your father has made over your life about your career prospects.
She'll never work. She'll never work, Doris. She'll never work. Yeah, please continue, Jack.
And they have made me laugh. But you always impart those comments that your father made about you when you were young with humour and love.
Yes.
Really important. And that comes through really strongly. Doris is obviously a really strong role model, has been and still is, thank goodness.
Yes, bless.
Yes. Can you tell us a bit more about maybe your upbringing and how that shaped you as a person, but also as an academic? I guess I want to kind of pull that apart a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm again probably one of the last generations, Jack, where I was raised in a working class household where the working class was still in work. Whereas now we've got, the working class that is underemployed in casualised precariat environments. Whereas I came from that solid working class stock where if people worked hard, they could make a living and they could build a family and they could buy a house. So mine was a working class life that was very stable. And of course, you don't know what you don't know. So we didn't really know any sort of posh middle class people at all. So you don't know what you're missing out on at all. And then, of course, I arrived in university. And then for the first time, because obviously I'm Irish Catholic, was an Irish Catholic, pretty poor school with a lot of migrants. And so that was great. So I never actually met any posh people at all. So I assumed everyone sort of went round an old beat up combi, right? I assumed that was, old beat up 1977 Celica and a combi. And I'd assumed that was sort of normal, right? And people worked hard. Kevin had big hands that were often, the nails were covered in grease, and these were working hands. And Doris worked her absolute guts out in a shop and then working in a vineyard and pruning 100 vines a day. Can you imagine? And so I learned about work, and I learned about the power of work, and I learned about the power of money. And perhaps the other thing in these vlogs that sort of, bourgeois, people that come from more of a bourgeois background, I've always tried to be honest with our students. And I talk about dough a lot because it's about, you can talk about the higher ideals and the organic intellectual, but if you can't buy your groceries, then that's a whole other story. So that's why it's important we're always honest about money. But from that background, when I arrived to a posh university, Jack, so the University of Western Australia, right, one of what we call the Group of Eight, our Ivy League, if you will, our Russell Group. And I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't understand the accents. I didn't understand how they were using cutlery. It was just, I didn't understand the musical references, and I was in a posh, history department where, of course, ladies, women went to university to get themselves a husband, get themselves a doctor, get themselves an engineer, and that's the only reason you do a Bachelor of Arts degree. So I arrived, and I loved history, and I loved this, and so I went there, but had no real clue what was going on around me. I had a couple of great friends that had also come from a similar background. The widening participation agenda was just kicking in. hi to Guinevere. Her father was the equivalent of then Jim's mowing. So her father used to mow lawns. So Guinevere and I met each other like week one, and we basically stayed together for 4 years. But what happened, Jack, is I very early on, I mean, I lived in the library because I'd never seen anything as magnificent as the University of Western Australia Library. And I discovered Raymond Williams. I read Raymond Williams when I just turned 18. And his father was a railway signalman, and he ended up at Cambridge. And he was expressing in so many of his books exactly how I was feeling, that I had profound respect for these remarkable parents that had worked their guts out, sacrificed so much, and yet their entire income for a year was about 5% of what it was costing for these students Mercedes-Benz that an 18-year-old kid was parking in the UWA car park. So as I read Raymond Williams and I saw his bride, and he used to talk about, yes, you know, Oxbridge is a remarkable thing, but he always reminded his readers that he'd come from a working class background with its own knowledge, with its own history, with its own strengths, with its own passions, and that needed to be valued and expressed in the university system. So we needed to find a way to graft working class knowledges into these upper middle class and above institutions. And that was Raymond Williams' project. That for many years, of course, was the Cultural Studies project. I think we've lost our way now. And I always hope to carry that forward, whether it be working class knowledges, whether it be women's histories, whether it be non-binary identifying trans communities, the groups that just don't fit in the contemporary university system. And maybe as we've reached through our careers, Jack, our job has been to create space. That's all we can do. We can do deep listening, and we can create space for these communities to find their way and to transform universities to render it much more diverse. Does that sort of answer the question a bit?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. It tells us, and we can see this in your vlogs as well, Tara, that what has underpinned your approach and still does is this desire to include people. And that's really what it's been about, I think. It's this drive to make education available, to make education inclusive. And I think that's a remarkable thing to have focused on. And certainly we can see that you've achieved a lot of that for people as well, Tara.
Well, Jack, I don't know about Griffith. We can maybe talk about this, but the amazing thing for me when I came to this current job as the Dean of Graduate Research was, if you look at the narrative of PhD students, they're young men in the sciences, white people, young men in the sciences on scholarship. And I suddenly arrived in this job and I realised that group was less than 10% of our students. So what are we doing? So it was about the reality, the diversification of higher degrees had already happened, and we were ignoring it. So part of what my job was saying, this is actually the reality. Let's start to see it. And that'll then open it out for all sorts of different groups, particularly older crew. Because, you know, as you know, the average age of our students now, they start at 40. Now, you know, it's no longer the time when older crew are going, oh, look, I don't really fit in a doctoral program. It's like the doctoral program is for older crew. That's who the students are.
Yes. So we're going to talk about lifelong learning a little bit later, Tara. We'll come back to that, because I think this idea about the doctoral students being the older students really feeds into that idea about lifelong learning, that we're all on this interesting, weird, strange, quirky journey called life, and that learning is such an important part of that. Yeah. But I don't want to get too dire here, Tara, or too grey and goth.
Yeah, let you and I go goth, mate. Let's go there.
Yeah, we're going to go goth because we both were goths in our younger years.
We were.
And we still carry some of that, I think.
You're never a post-goth. You're never post-goth.
You can be post-punk, but never post-goth.
Never.
So, Tara, you've persevered through some pretty dire situations.
Yeah.
Some pretty shitty jobs.
Yeah, mate.
Having dealt with some pretty shitty people.
Yep.
You've seen colleagues in some pretty awful situations, people, colleagues, students have died.
Yep.
We know that your beloved husband, Professor Steve Redhead,
was a great friend of yours, Jack. Great
yes,
friend of yours.
and a wonderful man. You know, his illness, his death, the deaths of students, multiple moves to multiple countries, and jobs that were not what they promised to be.
Nope.
So no doubt you've had to stop and take more than a few deep breaths along the way.
Yeah.
I think we'd all like to know what drives you, what sustained you during these periods, and what keeps you going amid all the craziness, the nastiness, and the madness.
Oh, look, thanks for saying that, Jack. Look, I am stunned at the brutality of international higher education. I'm stunned at the lying. Every job I've gone into, someone has lied to me to get me into that job, right? And that's a horrific thing for a 52-year-old woman to say. You move your life, and again, I'm a front up person, as you are, Jack. So it's like, I'm honest. All I want to know is the truth. Just give me the reality. Don't have to pretty anything up. Just tell me the reality, and I've got enough of a skill set to be able to manage it. So, you know, there's the darkness and the despair. In fact, I read a great book last year on what they called the deaths of despair, which I thought was a truly great book that I might do some further work on. But the notion that actually there's this bizarre thing that's happening on the planet at the moment, that, you know, middle class white people are drinking themselves to death, getting on oxys, and they're having these what are called deaths of despair, because their life was not how they thought it would be. And in many ways, sort of, you know, Donald Trump and all these different manifestations around the world are expressions of people who thought their life would be a particular way, and it was not that, and they don't know where to plant that disappointment. So I think perhaps the only thing that's allowed me to sustain, besides profound friendships, so I've been very fortunate. A lot of things have gone wrong. I'll tell you what's gone really well. I've picked my friends very well. And when times have got tough, and I'm looking straight at you, and you and I have had some tough times, the friendships have got very tight very quickly. So something's gone wrong, a group of us have basically swarmed around each other to just, we can't always do something, but we try. And so that's what I always say to students and colleagues. The friendships probably matter more than anything else, not the mentoring, not all these sort of posh words, leadership, whatever you want to use. It's the friendships, the deep friendships over decades that make a difference. But Jack, as I've got older and all these terrible things happen, obviously Steve's death, the lovely Mick Winter's death, death of colleagues, and, you know, death of how I thought my life would be. And that's the most brutalizing of all. And we all experience that. But how I manage it is I don't think about the future at all. At all. I don't have plans. I don't have strategies. I don't have, you know, this is my life force, blah, 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 blah. Jack, I just focus on now having a good day. I get up in the morning and I have a good day. And tomorrow I get up again and I have a good day. And I think that's what this hyper capitalism, zombie capitalism, our current university system, that's what it's taught me, Jack, that we can't plan, because, you know, tomorrow is not promised. We've seen through the pandemic, you know, our casualised colleagues, our colleagues on casual work, they're gone. They went real early. Our colleagues on contracts are gone. And we've certainly seen this year, permanent tenured academics have been sacked, have been removed from organisations. So when you can't plan, you can't hope. And so therefore you have to find something else to sustain you. And part of it is survival. So there is a pride in survival in tough times. Through all the stuff that's happened, you're still bloody upright and you're still breathing, Jack. And there's something, because, you know, they haven't beaten me, because there's that other thing too. It's like, so all these other people, all these terrible things have happened, but I've stayed upright. And these other people that have done the dirty and behaved disgracefully to my friends and colleagues, you know, their lives haven't ended up too well. And look, I'm still upright. And the final thing, and obviously, Jack, you know this through profound personal experience, that when someone dies, so particularly a life partner dies, it's an invisible death. It's because the grief is so upsetting to the people around you that it's not expressed. It's not put out in the world. And the one thing about going through it in a reasonably public way, as I sort of had to, because I had to keep working, is that thousands of people around the world, thousands, have contacted me, and sort of, and so when I sit with a lot of people without any judgment. So I sit with people, might be on Skype, might be on Zoom, and there's no sense of the conversations going anywhere or anyone's getting better or greater. But what I've learned is just to sit in a moment with somebody. And for me, that's probably the definition of leadership. Not get drawn to the past, not get drawn to the future, but to just sit and find the present moment meaningful, and know that the survival to the next moment is probably the greatest gift of all. And that's probably all we can hope for at the moment.
Wow. Amazing, powerful. Thank you, Tara.
But you agree with that? Because you've gone through incredible trauma, Jack, and you've survived, you've sustained, mate. But is that, where are you now? Are you still future oriented?
No.
Wow, really?
Haven't been for a long time. It's I think because you don't know what's going to happen, and as you said, the pandemic is such a great example.
Oh, darling. Oh, sweetheart. Oh, my darling. Oh, my darling. Sweet. Oh, baby, I'm sorry, Angel. Angel, you're doing fantastic. Oh, baby. I know it's terrible, darling. Jeez. Oh, I'm sorry, baby. You do it. Look, it has been terrible, Jack. And look, but we have survived, darling. Darling, we have survived. Okay? Oh, baby. I'm so sorry.
It wouldn't happen. I knew it would.
Oh, sweetheart. Oh, Jack, darling, you're doing fantastically, baby. I mean, darling, we've gone through a lot, so I'm not surprised we've got this left over, all right? Hang on, we'll just take a breath. You and I take a breath. We're doing all right. Woo! Sweetheart, you're an amazing person, okay? You're an amazing person. And we've survived. We're alive, darling. My Lord, we're alive.
I know, it's good. We're alive. I say that every day when I wake up. Yeah. I'm alive. It could be worse.
Oh, look, I know. And look, the thing is, so many of our friends, Jack, are in that same position, aren't they? Where they're just trying to survive, right? But they are surviving. And I think what we need to be saying post the pandemic is the survival has been a victory. Because I think so much of our lives are about planning and success and KPIs and blah, blah, blah. And I think what you realise is, none of that matters, mate. None of it matters.
Any of that matters, Tara.
None of it matters. And it's the being able to pay your bills, maintain your friendships. And you know what? Have integrity, Jack, because with all the liars and the dreadful behaviour and the bitchiness and the nastiness and the narcissists and all this stuff, the victory is not being that, Jack. The victory is being a decent, ethical person in bad times. When someone comes at you with the aggro and the nastiness and the dreadful behaviour, it's very easy to fight back. And there's something profoundly moving about saying, look, thank you for that. I wish you well. I know you wish me ill, but I actually wish you well. And I'll now remove myself from this situation because you're on your own journey and I just need to get out of the way.
I think that all of that's really very true and really important to remember. And when somebody who's watched you along the way says something to you like, I've always really admired your ethics and your ethical stance. Yeah. And that just reminds you that, yeah, you might have had to make some tough decisions and have some tough conversations, but ultimately, you know what? We have a couple of things. One is our reputation, and the other is that really deep sense of who are we and what kind of people are we, or what kind of person am I? And if that's based on an ethical foundation that informs everything you do, then you can get up of a morning and go, I didn't hurt anyone yesterday and I'm not going to hurt anyone today.
And also, Jack, what I think is so profound in these new books that you're writing, and we're seeing this very strongly in your new publications, Jack, where that ethics and the integrity and the decency, that this is being conveyed to the next generation of researchers as well. So you are doing the world a great service through your research, because you're not only living that, which is profound in and of itself, but you are drawing a line in the sand and you're saying, this matters. This matters, and I'm going to share this with you, and here's a way your life and your career can progress. So I think that's astonishing, Jack.
This blog is not about me, Tara.
But it sort of is, because as you know, the feedback we got from the vlog we did was that culture so rarely sees two women that like each other.
This is true.
And you know, and so in some ways it's not about me. It's maybe not even about you, and it's maybe not about us, but it's about people, women, but people who have made different choices, and you know, in groups in our culture may not think we've been successful at all, but we're still here, and the survival and being upright after what you and I have gone through, that I'm proud of that every day, and I'm bloody proud of you, girl.
Right back at you. Tara, I've watched all of your vlogs.
You poor person. You poor person.
They've sustained me, and I'm sure they've helped and sustained other people during some pretty awful periods. I remember a period a few years ago when I would wake up on a Thursday going, at least I've got Tara's vlog to watch today, when everything else is shit around me. It's all right. I've got Tara's vlog to watch. So Tara, I rewatched vlog 1 the other day. You know, I'm a big believer in coincidences. I call them coincidences because that's what they are. But it popped up in my YouTube feed as I was doing a bit of research for this interview, for this vlog.
Oh.
Strange, but it just popped up there, and I thought, oh, vlog 1. So I rewatched it, and it made me realize how much the vlogs have changed over the years. And I think that's really good. They've increased in complexity.
Yes.
They've become more content rich. Yeah. They've mined rich and diverse topics. Yeah. But I really want to know, and maybe other people do too, I hope they do, what drove you to start the vlogs? What have they meant to you? What do they mean to you?
Look, they started through necessity and worry, Jack, and it is a regional story. Regional education, you and I both share as an interest. And it started because when this job happened, and of course that first vlog was recorded in Bathurst in our lounge room. So it was recorded in Bathurst, number one. So it would be ready, because I didn't know what I'd be coming to temporary accommodation. So I thought, let's get one done, and then I can travel and do the rest from Adelaide. But they started because I had a problem. There were lots of problems that existed at Flinders at that time in terms of candidature. So we had very long candidatures, not much training of supervisors at all, highly siloed experiences, and you know, some problems with students and attrition and so forth. And as I started to research, I suddenly saw, right, we've got a much older population than in my head. I thought I was expecting 23-year-olds, and there's 38-years. Then I also saw that a third of them were part-time, and I saw a third of them were from regional Australia, so outside of South Australia, let alone Adelaide. And all of this was invisible, as all the training and content was about being on the Bedford Park campus in Adelaide. And I went, well, this is madness, because we've got people with caring responsibilities, full-time work, and they're in bloody Tennant Creek. So what are we doing? So I thought, and I'd written some research about the year before on the 3Ds, so digitisation, disintermediation, deterritorialisation. I thought, well, look, there's a theoretical model. Let's take it for a walk. And so I thought, well, I want something informal and casual. I want it conversational, because I want them to see their new dean. If they're in Tennant Creek, if they're in Dubbo, I want them to see me. And I want them to feel like we're having a conversation. I want the isolation to stop, and then I want to build the relationships between them. So very early on, and I think I did even mention it in vlog 1, I said, hi, send me requests.
You did?
So I think I became like a human jukebox. So it's like, you tell me what you're interested in. Of course, the risk is then I had to sort of, read 10 books a week and a pile of papers. In fact, I got a stack of papers where I'd be, so here's something I've got no idea. Okay, I'm starting with basically from zero knowledge. And so I had piles of sort of 10 vlogs I was working on at any particular time until one reached the surface where I went, okay, that's a legitimate argument. And so therefore the students started to see, oh, right, so I'm in Tennant Creek, but this person is talking directly to me. Hi, Heather. This vlog comes by request for Heather. And so Heather's going, oh, my goodness me. Hi, Tara. Hi, Heather. So there was that degree of communication and connection. And so very quickly, the long candidature was ended. More and more students came. So we had a 25% growth in student numbers this year during the pandemic. And students almost got a friend on the side. So it fleshed out the role of a Dean of Graduate Research. It embodied what this role could be. And they knew, and this was particularly important for PhD students, they knew they were being listened to. Yeah. And that someone cared about them deeply. Because we often hear, this, Jack, that PhDs, no one cares, more mine, no one cares if I live or die. And so whatever's going on in the supervisory space, while we were picking up the supervisory training, the dean was there. And every week, we didn't miss one for 5.5 years. And I did that intentionally. That was from the start. When Steve and I were talking about what this vlog series would look like, Jack, it was very much, and it was never about lots of people watching it. It was about if 3 people in Dubbo are watching it, that's successful. But it was about being regular. So as you said, on Facebook, I posted every Thursday morning, on LinkedIn every Wednesday morning, and on Twitter every Friday morning. And I sent an email to the Flinders high degree students every Friday morning at 8 o'clock. Same time with some interesting information around the vlog. And that was because in a time of chaos, when everything was going wrong, I wanted to be the one fixed point. So they know whatever else is happening, there's going to be a positive, happy email. So most of us are used to dreadful emails arriving. They know they can open an email Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning and it's positive and there's something interesting there, and they get a bit of content. If they just need a friend while they're going for a walk or they're exercising or they're doing a commute with their kids, there's 30 minutes of content to just give them some ideas and freshen them up. So that's where it came from. And look, it's been more successful, Jack, than I could ever imagine. Millions of people have watched this. And I don't know why. But I don't know why. But it's been fun. And they have increased in their complexity. Some very tough concepts and ideas have come through. And I think during the pandemic, the students wanted me to toughen up, Princess. And so I did. And so during the pandemic, some very tough stuff came out. So I think, the comma series was the great one, whereby I think it was 11 weeks of me dealing with fear and despair and anger and jealousy. And it was crazy. I mean, it was really like a sort of a Pet Shop Boys album that was compressed into 11 weeks. But again, the feedback on that was remarkable. So they have toughened up. And look, the diversity of topics will always be my surprise, Jack. That 300, there hasn't been a lot of replication there at all. It's been every week something new. So that's been the surprise. And the scale of the popularity, no one's more stunned than me, to be honest. No one.
I laugh because you said earlier that you don't think you're that interesting a person. No. But we do.
I just think I'm a real dag. I better explain that to international. How do I explain that to international viewers? Yes, it's a thing that's at the back of a sheet. Australians use metaphorically to describe someone that sort of hangs about a bit awkwardly, and that would be me.
Oh, goodness. That'll go down in history. Tara, I think part of what you've just talked about leads me into the next thing that I want to talk to you about, which is lifelong learning. Because these vlogs have really been, like with me watching them every week, I've learned something every week. Now, I know that your intended audience was really these PhD students, these wonderful people who have complex, multifaceted lives, who are doing all kinds of interesting things.
Precious people. Yeah.
but I think the audience is much more broad than that. Certainly it appears to be.
My goodness.
Every time I've watched those vlogs, I have learned something, even when they've been aimed at a PhD student. So that's been great for me over the last few years in terms of, you know, I get these great and fantastic lessons in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, however long the vlog is.
Yes.
But I want to talk to you about your lifelong learning.
Yeah.
You've made this commitment to continuous learning. You've got 10 degrees.
I at 10? I think I might be. Am I, Jack? I think I'm at 10. Am I?
10? But no one's counting because we don't care about metrics. We don't.
No.
I agree with what you said earlier, that I gave up with the planning and worrying about how many a long time ago. But you have published 20 books.
Yep.
And more than 250 other publications, journal articles, book chapters.
It's amazing.
So you've got several bachelor degrees, 4 masters, including the Masters of Leadership, a PhD, and interestingly, the graduate diploma in gastronomic tourism.
And the graduate diploma in internet studies. So there's these 2 weird little graduate diplomas that are really random. Yeah, I know.
What you don't have, though, is the Masters of Self-Promotion.
No, I don't. And because I'm waiting for you to write that, and then I'll be your first student.
Fantastic. I'll
keep it to be true. I am there.
I'll hold you to that. But when many would stop when they'd attained a PhD, you've continued to study while also teaching us and helping us to learn. But why is this continual learning important to you?
Oh, that's a great question. And look, I think it again started with necessity, and it was the story that you and I shared. So I was at Central Queensland University. I'd just done my year at the Vic in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in Wellington. And you know, I was a pretty good researcher, I thought, did pretty well. But again, I felt like, and I'd done all this tutoring at UWA and Murdoch and then at the Vic lecturing, I just thought I'd been teaching via the seats of my pants, right? So I was like, it was all a bit too charismatic for me. It was a bit too public speaking, sage on a stage, and not actually, I didn't understand learning enough. I wanted to understand how learning happened. So therefore, when I was at CQU, I decided to enroll at CQU in their Bachelor of Education. And that was so I'd done my, you know, mind you, I suppose I'd done like a couple of bachelors and a couple of masters and then the PhD. So there'd been stuff there. But for me, the lifelong learning really started with the education quals, because I went, I want this expertise, and I want to be taught by experts. I want experts to help me. And so I did that Bachelor of Education. I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was a great qualification. CQU education was, I hope it still is, but was absolutely brilliant, and I loved it. And so then, you know, later on I did a Masters of Education, because same things, like, well, I'll just do one step further and see how we go with that. And then, you know, the little graduate certificates happen. So, I'm interested in online learning. So I don't want to be one of those chicks that can't do tech. So I don't want to be like, I can't do it, and the bloke can do it, you do it. So I therefore did a tech degree, and I really loved that. And then part of my regional development work that is an interest you and I both share, along with the legendary Sarah Casey, big love Sarah, is I thought, well, look, let's do gastronomic tourism. I'd written the book on digital wine, looking at how to engage with wine and regions. And I thought, well, look, I'm interested in food. I'm interested in food and how that would work for food, but I don't know enough about food and tourism. And there was this course. So I've loved the structured learning. And Jack, I suppose why I've done it, it's about respect of expertise. I have lived my life respecting the expertise of others. I'm here to learn, and I love reading. You know, I get so excited when I've got a book because someone spent 5 years of their life doing this, and like I can learn from those 5 years in 5 hours. What a gift is that, right? Same thing with courses. So in a very short space of time, I get 20 years of disciplinary expertise. So it's efficient. It keeps me intellectually generous. It hopefully keeps me humble, because I go, wow, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. I'd love to learn. So it's had some consequences. So at Flinders, I've supervised in all 6 of the colleges. So I haven't just sort of gone into the humanities and social sciences. I've gone to business. I've supervised, I think, 3 theses in science and engineering. So the big sweep of disciplines has meant I'm interested in everything. And so probably in the vlogs, that's maybe, and I suppose it's accidental, Jack, but you can see the lifelong learning that I'm interested in everything. And I have a go. It's like, oh, I'm interested in this. Now, I don't know where that's going, but let's do a vlog on it and see what I can find out, and let's share it, and you can tell me what I'm doing wrong. So the vlogs are probably part of that, but it's been such a joy of my life. It's been such a joy to learn from others and respect other people's expertise.
It's such an important point, Tara. The respect for expertise is sadly lacking in a lot of places. So to be able to recognize that other people are experts and to leave that space for the expertise to inform you it's really valuable that you've been able to recognize that and allow that to happen, because we know that in a lot of institutions, in government, expertise is not always valued, and it's certainly not drawn on. We talked about this
In your vlog?
very recently.
Yeah.
Vlog, yes, where you interviewed me, and talking about how there's this wealth of expertise out there, but it's not drawn on. So I'm really glad that your lifelong learning journey has recognised the importance of expertise and how much you can gain from it, Tara.
Look, also that's right. And also, I suppose, Jack, in the vlogs, I always wanted them to have that expertise element in it. So they've never been a vibe. I don't think I've ever done a vibe vlog where it's like, here's my view on something. It's always come from, here is the research on this topic. Here's some really interesting reading. That, wow, I found this fantastic new scholar at Manchester Metropolitan University. I've just read these 5 articles from this person. Follow this person's name. So I've done that a lot. Or I read this unbelievable book. So here's the book. So go and read this book and let me riff off it. But remember, this book's important. So it's always been, I hope, evidentially framed.
It's been so obvious to me, watching your vlogs, that they are highly researched, thoroughly researched. They are, you're right, it's never been your opinion, it's been, here's the evidence, and I'm presenting it to you. You've at times shared experiences with us, which is also part of being an expert. In fact, it's another kind of lifelong learning. Your experiences inform the approach, the way that you impart information, but sharing those lessons has been really vital, a vital part of the vlogs, I think, and also really valuable for people who have listened to and watched them, because we've learnt so much from your experiences.
And that's why I did want them personable. That's why I think I used that weird word vlog, because I was working off the blog, which was sort of, I wanted it conversational, because remember, it was about making our students feel safe and heard. And so therefore, me doing a posh, let me do a lecture, let me do a seminar, it was never that, but it was always, I see you. And let's get a bit dirty. Let's get a bit down and dirty and handle some really difficult stuff.
Yeah.
And you can just handle this calmly, and then we can talk about it later, because often we had so many discussions after the vlog. So through Friday, after I sent the vlog out to students, a whole series of conversations would emerge through the day. So it was personal and political, which is good, but it was always, I hope, scholarly.
Yeah, definitely. They were, and inspiring. I used to get up on Thursdays after watching the vlog and go, yay, come on, get into it. It would just give you that, even with the dire topics, the comma series, it would still make you kind of go, yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm up and I'm at it today,
Life's terrible.
Into
the narcissists are going to get it, but at least I know what they look like now.
That's right. So I've got another question about the vlog, but I'll come back to that. want to ask you something about that, but what I do want to ask now, because it follows on from the lifelong learning, is about your PhD students or about your higher degree research students.
Yes.
On one page, on one of your professional pages, I counted more than 20 PhD completions. I'm sure there's more than that, but I don't know if you're counting.
Oh, look, yeah, no, it's stunning. I mean, I think I had another completion this morning. Hello, Wonderful Forever. I had a completion this morning, which I think, Jack, is 189.
Oh, gosh.
189. I've actually had 51 students complete for the 5.5 years I've been at Flinders.
Right, right. Wow.
Uh,
That's
yeah.
epic.
Yeah, no one's more stunned than me, because I like you, I thought, oh, I was like Steve, you know, I was hanging about at about 37, and then I sort of realized, oh, right, so I've had 4 completions this week, so I'd better actually do a bit of a count. And of course, you know, God knows the coursework masters and honors, I couldn't even count the honors. And no one's more surprised than me, because I live in the moment with the student. So the student is everything. We get them through the journey and we send them on their way to a fabulous new experience. But yeah, it's been bizarre. It's been bizarre, Joe. But gee, it's been joyful. It's been joyful because, you know, the age range of the students I've taught been, you know, 20 right the way through. You met the wonderful Amanda. So Amanda was my youngest ever PhD student. She went to university very, very young, right the way through to the legend that was Mick Winter, and he was 78 when he died. So that's, you know, what a joy that is. And, you know, I've done artifact exegesis theses, I've done the PhD by prior publication, and that's been joyous. So it's been a great experience. It's been a great experience, and I've gone on to profound success.
So Tara, what do you want for your students? I mean, 189 PhD students, and then all these masters and honors students on top of that. That's an amazing group of people out there that you've done something really important for.
Well, with yeah.
Yes, with is a better word. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've done something important with them, and they're out there now doing amazing, incredible things. But
Yeah.
what do you want for them?
Look, the first thing I want for them is the ability to make a living. I know that sounds very, very, very low level in terms of ability, Jack, but I've often taught students from working class backgrounds, diverse sexualities, people that have done it pretty tough, that have come to me with some level of desperation where the system has not believed in them. When I had all my wonderful students at Bolton and Brighton in the United Kingdom, invariably I was supervising, particularly in the UK, students that the system had let down, that no one believed in them, Jack. And I was the person that said, you know, I do believe in you. I don't know what's gone wrong, why all these people are having challenges with you, but let's do this. Now, a great example I'll use, I won't mention the lass because she's gone on to great success, so she probably doesn't want this story told, but this was at the University of Bolton. And the system would not enroll her. She was not being allowed to enroll, and she was an academic at Bolton. And the blokes, and they were all blokes, said, oh, look, no, you can't do a PhD. So Steve and I quietly supervised her. And in about 7 months, we wrote a completed PhD with her, and she wasn't enrolled yet. And so then Steve and this particular student and I arrived at the graduate office with a completed bound thesis and said, hi, I think this shows she can do it. And she was enrolled. It went to examiners the next week, and it went through without correction.
Wow.
So what I want for my students is that they can earn a living. And through earning a living and making some dough, they get a little bit of freedom. And you know, that's probably all we can ask for at the moment. So it's great if they, and I've had wonderful students that have gone to be great professors. I've had great students that have used the flexibility of a PhD to have their life and their caring responsibilities as a mum, and then able to put a part-time contract through their career, and that's success. That's success. Flexibility is success for some of those students. Earning a living is a success. Being able to move out of a toxic situation, domestic violence situation, being able to reboot your life after tragedy That's why I've got into this business, and they're often the students that I've taught. In terms of the 51 students I've done at Flinders, only one of them was on a scholarship for 1 year. So none of them were supported by the system, if you will. They supported themselves because they believed in themselves and just needed somebody else to believe in them too. And they then kicked on in their life. So we've just done a vlog with the wonderful Aidan Cornelius Bell. He got a full-time permanent job while his thesis was being examined. And for me, that's so successful. And he and his wonderful partner now can kick on and make plans, things that you and I, are probably frightened of doing now. But as young people, they can now make a plan in terms of housing and family and life. And that's a great gift of a doctorate, I think.
Wow, that's incredible. It definitely comes through the vlogs. You talk a lot about your supervision style, but the job and the living is so important.
Yeah.
And you said near the beginning of our conversation that you're always upfront about money, and you're always upfront about the need to pay your bills, Tara, first and foremost.
And what the triumph of paying bills in a difficult time, Jack, too, in a time of casualisation, 0-hour contracts, precariat, the pride that comes in from being able to pay one's bills. I think we need to talk about that. If you've been born into money and you got plenty of dough and dad got you a car and all that sort of stuff, then you don't get what I'm talking about. But if you come from nothing and you get yourself from zero to hero, and hero is being able to pay your bills, you are a triumph. Well done. That's brilliant. That's success, because you suddenly, once you're able to pay your bills, you've got just a little bit of freedom. And that's Marx's double freedom. Freedom to sell your labor, that's all you've got, but you can sell it to anyone. And Marx's double freedom, we must never forget about.
It's interesting. I was having a bit of a giggle there to myself, or it might have come across on the audio there. But the giggle was about a few years ago, someone said to me that, they'd earned X amount of money, and they looked at me and with a bit of an upturned nose said, "Oh, that's probably not much to someone like you." And I had that moment where I thought, well, you actually don't know anything about me, because like you, Tara, I'm from a working class background.
Wow.
I've
seen you earn every dollar, Jack. I've seen you earn every dollar.
Thank you. But, I had to go to university part-time because my parents couldn't afford to put me through university either. So I had to work while I went to uni part-time. And, it took 6 years to do the BA, and everything followed on from that. But working full-time as a journalist while studying wasn't always the easiest thing. But, I really get the ability to pay your bills. I was living in a flat on earning $148 a week as a cadet journalist, paying the rent, paying a car off, and, paying the electricity and the phone. And at the end of the week, if there was 12 bucks left for food, then that was a win.
There is. And that's not that's not the sort of Monty Python Yorkshireman sketch, like I live down a mine in a brown paper bag. But it is about saying, when you've done the tough stuff, don't forget that. Don't forget what it's like to live when you've got basically 18 bucks left for food, right? And I've certainly never forget. I mean, if I smell Canton sauce now, you and I have talked about this. I lived in Victoria, in Wellington, on cheap rice and Canton sweet and sour sauce. I smell it now. I need to express myself, right? And you never forget that. You must never forget that. And that's why we need to make sure our students are in work, not all this employability rhetoric, actually getting the students in jobs so they can pay their bills. That's not an ideology. That's crucial to life.
And the other thing it does for you, Tara, is it makes you think when you're at the supermarket and that person in front of you is starting to put items back because they can't afford them, you start to remember, well, that was me once. And the other thing it does is it makes you realize that people live all kinds of strange, hard, difficult circumstances. They live in hard and difficult circumstances. So you don't take what you have for granted, because who knows, tomorrow it could all be gone.
Tomorrow it could be you. And look, whenever, I'm sure you do the same thing, whenever you see, and I see it a lot around this particular area of Adelaide, I see a lovely older lady often, or an older gentleman who has the coins and is paying for their groceries and has to put a bunch of grapes back. And I will just every time will just simply pay for their groceries, because the idea that that's the level of inhumanity we have in contemporary Australia, that people are so impoverished that, you know, they've got basically, you know, bread, butter, and their treat for the week is a bunch of grapes, and they're having to put the grapes back. I can't live in a country where that's real. And so we have to do something, even if it is just making that 1 week better for that wonderful gentleman or older lady, just so that they maybe next week can get themselves a bunch of grapes. Yeah.
So important, Tara.
Yeah.
Tara, I wanted to, the other question, I've got one more after this one.
Oh.
Of course, there's always one more. I can't help myself. It's part of the lifelong learning, asking questions and getting answers to them. Tara, what's the vlog that really stands out for you? I know this is a hard one, and it's what do they say? It's not meant to be a Dorothy Dixer.
No, and can I tell you, it's certainly not, because I've never thought about it. Probably, and probably you could ask me on any given day, and it might be a different one, Jack. But I think the one where it was the hardest to write, was the hardest to deliver, and I was angry and grieving, which is a very odd combination. So I'm not sure what the number was, but it was on not being strong. So it was about probably 106, 107. So I think Steve had been dead for about 5 weeks, and his ashes and his ashes were sitting on the lounge suite while I was delivering the vlog. So literally he was sitting himself down and I was delivering it in the corner, and every now and again in the vlog you can see my eyes flick over to the box of ashes. So it's really weird, right? And I said it came from anger, because what happened was, because I simply went to work the day after Steve's death, because you have to earn a living, right? So it's like I was on contract. I was all alone in a city where I didn't know anybody. So you just got to get on with it. You got to earn a living, right? And the interesting thing is, all these people start to say stuff, Jack, like, oh, well, look, you can't really offer any commentary to students about what they're going through, because, you know, you've managed this. And so really you've got nothing to say to students, because what are students meant to say? It's like, you know, I'm feeling a bit sad today, and then they're talking to a dean whose husband died a month ago. So they can't really speak to you anymore. And I got furious, Jack, because it's all this thing about how, particularly a woman, though I'm sure colleagues through diverse genders and sexualities, the same thing happens. But this is how a woman who's lost her husband needs to behave. Yeah. And the idea that I didn't fit that narrative, and of course you similarly managed that complexity and didn't behave as people expect you to behave, I got furious about that. So, and I had so many people saying, oh, you're so strong. You're so strong. And so the vlog was called On Not Being Strong. And I didn't know if I'd be able to get through it, because the trouble with a woman's voice, as you know through all your media work, Jack, is women's voices tend to tighten with emotion, because blokes got the longer vocal cords. And so you can hear our emotion much more, you know, with roughness, and it's much more overt. So it's hard to control it when you get upset. So I thought, okay, well, let's have a go, and let's do this. And I did it, and I did it in one take. Every vlog's been done in one take. And ironically, it's now used through a whole series of social work degrees in the United Kingdom, where they've used On Not Being Strong to think about strength and women and men and people and grief. And, you know, that makes me incredibly proud. But it came out of grief and anger, and research about resilience, and that's what I ended up with. So that one's the memorable one, because I still don't quite know how I did it, but I'm glad I did.
Wow. And how good is it that out of something so dire, something so powerful came that is now being used to help other people? Wow.
Oh, mate, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. And it wasn't intended, but it did allow, and you and I have always laughed at sort of the hippie and the well-being stuff and the resilient stuff. But what's been great is the resilience literature through the legendary David Chandler. Much respect to Professor Chandler. He's stopped talking about individuals being resilient. It's about how organizations are creating resilience. And I think that will change our lives if we start to think about organizational resilience.
Yeah, and resilience of systems, but good systems.
Yeah.
That's really important too. I
Oh,
think
yes.
that, and I love that work because the word resilience is so misused and abused. How come you're not recovering from a disaster? It's been a year, you know, these other people have recovered, they've moved on. But of course, that idea about resilience is incredibly problematic when it's applied in that way. But talking about resilience of organizations and systems, because they're there to help people, or they should be there to help people.
And of course, that tethers beautifully. And I haven't read this work yet, Jack, but it works beautifully with your work on, disaster communication, disaster media too. So if a system is resilient, then the management of disaster communication should be improved. I haven't seen that research tether yet. It probably exists, but I look forward to reading that.
Great. So Tara, we're getting near the end now.
You've been amazing, Jack. This has been amazing. Wow.
Lots of fun. It's been good. Oh, okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So Tara, this is a kind of about a bit of reflection. I know that vlog 300 is going to be a really special one, and many of us will be holding our breath in anticipation.
Oh, geez, no pressure, Jack. My goodness me, I have written it and I'm learning it at the moment. So, wow, I
but you know, the anticipation about what's it going to be about and what's it going to hold. Okay, we will see. I'd really like to end this vlog by asking you, what will you remember about your time at Flinders?
Yes.
And maybe, if, you know, that might kind of broaden out to what do you remember most about, or what's most important to you about being an academic?
Yeah. And look, thank you for that, Jake. Look, I've loved working at Flinders. I've loved every day of it. I've loved being a Dean of Graduate Research. I've had the best boss I've ever had in Professor Robert Saint. Love Rob, legendary human being. So that's been rare for me because I've never had a good boss. I've never had a good boss. And at this point, when I was, I think, 47 when I came to the job as Dean, to have a DVCR as your direct line manager was phenomenal. I mean, what a privilege that has been. And to have this great man in my life has been superb. So firstly, that's been great. And that's restored my faith in leadership in our university. So that's been great. Working with the students, I've often said in the Office of Graduate Research, we see students on the best day of their life and the worst day of their life. And it's a privilege to sit with somebody and to hold their hand as they have that great moment of euphoria when they finish a thesis. And we all remember the day we finished our thesis, or the horrific moment where something truly appalling has happened and you sit in calmness and quietness and try and help them through. So there is no doubt that meeting those students has been a privilege. Working with colleagues throughout the university, I've never been in a portfolio role before, and so being able to work with our legendary engineers, hi Rocco, work with our engineers, work with our creative crew, work with business, work with social work, work with education, it's been just joyous. I've loved the intellectual stimulation of all these different disciplines. That's been great. So that's been terrific, and it's restored, it's healed me. I think, Jack. I think it's healed me, and would I have ever have left? I think probably now, I might have stayed on for another couple of years, maybe. I certainly, you know, it's upsetting to leave Rob. I would have liked to have left when he left, but I think what's important is, you know, I have remarried. I have married a younger man, Jack, who of course adores you, Jamie Quinton, and so the thing about this type of relationship with academics, and obviously I keep getting involved with academics, so I don't know what's going on there, but his career needs to take the next step. He is a scientist, a young man, and as you and I know, the scientist's career has a very different shape from people in other disciplines. So it's about me supporting him now, because he is a decent, ethical, extraordinary man. And so what's important for me now, Jack, is caring for him, because I think he can do a huge amount of good for the world. I think he's one of the most astonishing, decent, ethical people that I've ever met. And so my job really now as an old lady is to try and facilitate and help him do good. And so that's why when this opportunity came up for Jamie, it was important, I think, that I went with him. And I know that might seem very anti-feminist or a bit Tamiwane, but actually it's about, I come from a working class background. It's about the family. Yeah. It's about the family moving forward for benefit, not only for the family, but for everybody else. And so moving Jamie's career on was important for the family. And my job is to support that rather than my individual trajectory and career. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Wow. Wow. It's wonderful to see the love and the care there, because I think sometimes academics can be perhaps a little self-centered. So it's actually really nice to see and to have a conversation where someone is putting someone else's needs ahead of their own. Yeah. And if you can find someone like that, it's an amazing thing. So good on Jamie for finding you, Tara, and good on you for finding Jamie.
Oh, I'm incredibly lucky, as you and I both are. We've been very fortunate. We've fallen on our feet in the partner area. But, yeah, you know, that's the interesting thing about believing in somebody, and it's trying to make sure the world is improved. And the one thing about being involved with a physicist is he does think globally, and he does think in terms of transforming global crises. So, you know, I can do all sorts of things in my research, but the interesting thing about being with a physicist is you can see how the world can change if people just follow the expertise.
Yeah, and everyone needs a bit of poetry in their life too, Tara.
Well, that's right. You and I have once more gone on the other extremes of partners. Yeah. He's a truly lovely man. He's very lucky to have you.
And I am delighted and lucky to have him. So Tara, thank you so much for sharing bits of your amazing story and journey. The pleasure and the privilege of interviewing you have been mine today. For those who watch and listen to the vlog, I'm sure the pleasure and the privilege will be theirs. Thank you.
You darling person, Jack. And I'm so glad. And we didn't know we were going to do this, did we, Jack? Because I wanted to talk with you, and we didn't know there'd be two matching pairs. It was your idea. I think that's a truly lovely thing. And I'm so glad. And we don't really know where you and I are going to be in the next 5-10 years. We don't know what's going to happen. Again, this has been our whole life. But I'm really glad we've shared this moment of pivot. And, you know, we'll look on it in a year's time and see where we've ended up. But I'm so grateful for you, Jack. I'm so grateful for, you know, friendship isn't talked about a lot, but it's been the blood in my body, Jack. So I thank you so much for this time. I thank you for your friendship. And look, I'll do the sign off for the second last time. Jackie and I, we wish you love, light, and peace. Jack and T out. Love you, darling.
Love you too.
Now,